Welcome back to the channel, basketball fans, where today we are going to uncover a revolutionary trend that is quietly reshaping the landscape of the National Basketball Association. We often talk about the three-point revolution or the rise of positionless basketball, but there is a new strategic shift happening right now in the front offices of the smartest teams, and it is all centered around how franchises value the center position. For decades, the big man was the centerpiece of every roster. You needed a dominant 7-footer to win a championship. But as the game has evolved to the perimeter, the economics of the center position have changed drastically. And right now, the Boston Celtics have unlocked what can only be described as a salary cap cheat code that is going to dominate the next half-decade of team building. We are going to break down exactly how the Celtics turned a potential roster crisis into a massive competitive advantage by refusing to pay the middle class of NBA centers. This is a story about financial efficiency, elite scouting, and the ruthless math of the new collective bargaining agreement. The Celtics have effectively proven that unless you have a generational alien like Nikola Jokic or Victor Wembanyama or Joel Embiid, you are better off spending $0 on the center position than spending $20 million. It is a bold strategy that many people, including myself, have been advocating for years, and now that we are seeing it in practice, the results are undeniably eye-opening. Let us set the scene. Coming into this season, the Boston Celtics were facing a massive financial crunch. They had a roster loaded with supermax contracts and expensive perimeter talent. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are making historic money. Drew Holiday and Derek White are on significant deals. The math simply did not leave room for expensive role players. This forced the Celtics to make some hard decisions. They had to let veteran big men like Al Horford and Luke Kornet walk away to sign elsewhere. At the time, this looked like a disaster. Everyone assumed that Brad Stevens and the front office would be aggressive in the trade market to find a replacement. Fans were clamoring for a mid-tier center. They wanted the team to spend their limited resources to bring in a known commodity. But Brad Stevens did something that shocked the league. He did absolutely nothing. Instead of panic buying a center, he decided to lean into the unknown. He went into the season relying almost entirely on minimum contract players to anchor the defense of a championship contender. He handed the keys to the paint to Neemias Queta and Luka Garza. On paper, this looked like a recipe for disaster, but on the court, it has been a revelation. Neemias Queta has been nothing short of a sensation for Boston. He has stepped into the starting lineup and provided 70 to 80% of the production of a top-tier center for about 5% of the cost. He gives them rim protection, he gives them vertical spacing as a lob threat, and he brings a relentless energy that fits perfectly with the Celtics' switch-heavy defensive scheme. Then you have Luka Garza, who has transformed himself from a defensive liability into a rock-solid backup who provides legitimate offensive firepower and spacing. These two guys are making peanuts compared to their peers across the league, and yet the Celtics have not missed a beat. In fact, they might even be better because of the flexibility this strategy provides. This is the moneyball of the modern NBA. It is the realization that the center position has become the running back position of basketball. In fantasy sports, there is a common strategy when drafting quarterbacks or tight ends. You either want to be the first person to draft a guy like Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce, or you want to be the last person to draft a position player. You either pay up for the elite difference maker, or you wait and grab value at the end. The worst place to be is in the middle. The same logic now applies to NBA centers. The drop-off from a player like Nikola Jokic to a player like Domantas Sabonis is significant. Jokic is an entire offensive system unto himself. Sabonis is an all-star, but he has limitations. Here is the key. The drop-off from a mid-tier center like Sabonis or Myles Turner or Nick Claxton to a minimum contract guy like Neemias Queta is not nearly as large as the salary difference suggests. Let us look at the numbers because they are staggering. Domantas Sabonis is making over $42 million this season. Nick Claxton is making over $25 million. Myles Turner is making over $25 million. These are good players. They are solid starters. But are they $20 million better than Neemias Queta? Does Nick Claxton give you $23 million more production than Neemias Queta? The answer is a resounding no. And that is the trap that so many NBA teams fall into. They feel the need to pay market value for average production. They see a starting center and think they have to pay him $25 million because that is what starting centers make. But the Celtics have realized that you can get league average production from the bargain bin if you trust your scouting and development. By saving $20 or $30 million at the center position, the Celtics are able to allocate those resources to the positions that actually matter in the modern NBA. They can pay Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They can keep 2 elite defensive guards in Holiday and White. They can maintain the best wing rotation in basketball. If the Celtics had paid a center $25 million, they would have likely had to trade one of their core pieces. They would have had to sacrifice a wing or a guard to pay a big man who probably gets played off the floor in the playoffs anyway. And that is the other part of this equation. The modern playoffs, traditional centers are becoming increasingly obsolete. Unless you can punish teams offensively like Jokic or Embiid or protect the rim at a historic level like Wembanyama, you are likely going to be a liability when teams go small and space the floor. We see it every year. Highly paid centers getting benched in the fourth quarter of playoff games because they cannot move their feet on the perimeter. So why pay $30 million for a guy who cannot close a game? It makes no sense. The Celtics have realized that it is better to cycle through cheap, energetic bigs who can give you 20 hard minutes and then sit down if the matchup is bad. This strategy is not just about being cheap. It is about survival under the new collective bargaining agreement. The new CBA was designed to break up expensive teams. The second apron penalties are draconian. They take away your ability to make trades, they freeze your draft picks, and they make it nearly impossible to improve your team. Overpaying for role players is now a death sentence. In the old NBA, you could get away with overpaying your starting center by $5 or $10 million. In this NBA, that mistake cost you your championship window. The Celtics are currently living under the luxury tax and operating as a second apron team. The only reason they are able to sustain this roster is because they have been ruthless with their resource management at the center position. They have turned the center spot into a revolving door of high-value, low-cost talent. And this brings us to the recent acquisition of Nikola Vucevic. Some people might look at this and say, wait a minute, Vucevic makes over $20 million, doesn't that contradict the strategy? But actually it reinforces it. Because the Celtics saved so much money on their starting center rotation, they had the flexibility to take on an expiring contract like Vucevic as a luxury. They did not sign him to a long-term deal that clogs their cap sheet. They acquired him as a rental to bolster their depth for a playoff run. They used the savings from the Queta and Garza experiment to afford a high-end backup for the stretch run. It is asset management at its finest. They are not married to Vucevic long-term. If he plays well, great. If he leaves in the offseason, it does not matter because they have the next minimum contract guy ready to step up. The rest of the league is starting to take notice. On a recent episode of the Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecini and Bryce Simon, they discussed this exact phenomenon. They pointed out that the Charlotte Hornets are finding similar success with this model. The Hornets have been using Moussa Diabate and Ryan Kalkbrenner, 2 guys who were basically acquired for nothing and getting fantastic results. Diabate has been a rebounding machine and Kalkbrenner protects the rim. They are getting winning production from guys who cost less than a veteran backup point guard. This is opening up massive possibilities for the Hornets to build out the rest of their roster. When you do not have $30 million tied up in a center, you can go out and get an elite winger or a dynamic scorer. You can build a deeper, more versatile team. The smarter teams in the league are going to catch on to this trend very quickly. We are going to see a devaluation of the center position similar to what happened to running backs in the NFL. The middle class of centers is going to get squeezed out. The elite guys will still get their max contracts because they are unicorns. But the guys who are just solid starters, the guys who get you 10 points and 8 rebounds, are going to find that the market for their services has dried up. Why would a team pay $20 million for that production when they can draft a guy in the second round or sign a G League standout who can do 80% of that for the minimum? The math just does not work in favor of the mid-tier big man anymore. The Celtics deserve a massive amount of credit for being ahead of the curve. It is not easy to trust unproven players on a championship team. There is a lot of pressure to go with the safe option. But Brad Stevens and his staff trusted their eyes. They scouted talent and fit. They found guys who were underutilized in other systems and identified traits that would work in Boston. Neemias Queta was cut by the Sacramento Kings. He was available for anyone to have. The Celtics saw his physical tools, his wingspan, his motor, and realized that with the right coaching, he could be a monster. They brought him in, developed him, and gave him the confidence to play. That is the hidden variable in this equation. You cannot just grab any random 7-footer and expect this to work. You need an elite development system. You need coaches who know how to simplify the game for these young bigs. You need a defensive scheme that protects them and utilizes their strengths. The Celtics have all of that. They have created an ecosystem where minimum contract centers can thrive. This trend is going to dominate the next 5 years of team building. We are going to see more teams trading away their expensive centers and replacing them with committees of cheap bigs. We are going to see the draft value of traditional centers drop even further. Unless you are a shooter or a generational defender, teams are not going to use a lottery pick on a center. They will use those picks on wings and guards and then try to find their center in the second round or undrafted free agency. The Celtics have provided the blueprint. They have shown that you can win at the highest level without spending money in the paint. They have shown that roster balance is more important than checking a box at every position. The implications for the league are fascinating. What happens to a guy like Rudy Gobert or Jarrett Allen or DeAndre Ayton when their contracts come up? Are teams going to be willing to pay them? Or will they be forced to take massive pay cuts? I think we are heading toward a market correction that will be painful for a lot of big men agents. But for the fans, this is actually good news. It means teams will have more money to spend on the exciting skill players. It means we will see more super teams formed on the perimeter. It means the game will continue to get faster and more skilled. And for the Celtics, this advantage gives them a runway to contend for years. As long as they have Tatum and Brown in their prime, and as long as they can find the next Neemias Queta, they will be a juggernaut. They have solved the hardest part of the salary cap puzzle. They have figured out where to cut costs without cutting wins. Most teams cut costs and get worse. The Celtics cut costs and stayed the same, or got better. That is the definition of a front office cheat code. It is resource allocation genius. So the next time you watch a Celtics game and you see Neemias Queta catch a lob or block a shot, just remember what that play represents. It represents $20 million in savings. It represents the ability to keep Derek White. It represents the sustainability of a dynasty. It is not just a basketball play, it is a business decision that is changing the NBA. The Celtics have bet on themselves and they have won that bet. They looked at the market and said, we are not paying for mediocrity. We are paying for excellence or we are paying nothing. And right now, paying nothing for the center position looks like the smartest investment in sports. I want to know what you guys think about this strategy. Do you agree that the center position is the new running back of the NBA? Do you think other teams will be able to replicate what the Celtics have done, or is this specific to their system and their scouting? And what does this mean for the future of guys like Sabonis and Turner? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below, because this is a debate that is going to rage on for a long time. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the economics of basketball and want more content like this, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are building a community of unparalleled basketball analysis here, and I would love to have you be a part of it. Smash that like button if you appreciate the breakdown, and do not forget to activate the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.